So I'm an organic beef and dairy farmer, and we've talked a lot about vegetables today, but I guess I am talking in defense of the humble cow. Uh, I am a big fan of cows, I would say. As my boyfriend would tell you, we were moving cattle during the week, and I put them in front of the house. So every morning I can open the window and see the cows outside. And I'm like, oh, it's so lovely. Every morning I can see the cows. And my boyfriend's like going, you could see me if you looked at me, but you just keep looking at the cows. So cows, I think, are an important part of Irish culture. I think they're ingrained within us. Even if we think of the Irish word for road, boher, bow meaning cow. You know, there's so many Irish words like that that are just ingrained in us, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that. So our farm is organic, and I farm in partnership with my neighbour. He has 150 acres, I have 70 acres, and we formed the partnership on the organic side of things this year. And the advisor, when we were putting the partnership together, pointed out that we had over 200 acres, and he got very excited by this. You could have over 200 dairy cows. I don't want to. Over 200 dairy cows. We have 45 dairy cows, and we have 10 pedigree Hereford cows on my side, on the beef side as well. So we have all that space that's in between that could potentially be going for the 200 dairy cows is actually being used for nature. So we have, I would say we have, it would have to be mapped properly, but between us we have maybe 10 kilometres of hedgerow. We had 3 wildlife ponds that we've built, and we also have about 20 acres just set aside between us as well for that is kind of scrubland and it's just for nature. We also have a number of beehives on my side of it. So where every dairy farmer is talking about expansion and they're talking about cows, I'm usually talking about beehives because I want to double my beehives this year. And so it's kind of an important part as well to talk about organic dairy, because it was mentioned that we have had this huge deluge of people taking up and deciding to become organic farmers, which is fantastic. But do you know that of the 18,000 dairy farmers in Ireland, only about 60 of them are organic? And when we talk about the number of organic farmers potentially increasing, only there are maybe 1,000 new organic farmers coming into the scheme, and only about 10 of them are organic dairy farmers. And that is because it is hard to be an organic dairy farmer. There is a huge lack of knowledge. I do present and produce the Irish Organic Association podcast. We've had a number of experts on over the last couple of weeks talking about seeds, talking about things like ryegrass, what type of grasses do we grow. There is a dearth of information in regards to organics. And I will name some names. So every time I talk to Teagasc, they have done very little, if any, research on organics and how to manage organic dairy farms. They don't have a research organic dairy farm. They have huge research farms dedicated to things like using less nitrogen, but when it comes to using zero nitrogen, they don't have that research. So we don't have that information available in Ireland. And there's also an issue as well in terms of the price of milk. So hands up, if you go into the shop and you buy a regular litre of milk, what's the price of it? Does anyone know? I will give you a free bottle of our own milk. Yeah, go on.
$2.89 for 2 litres.
Is it $2.89 for 2 litres?
Well, if you're the first person to answer. So I will give you
a round of applause. That'll do. So the number that I had was €1.15 for 1 litre of milk. But that milk that he has just taken, we produce that on farm. So to give you an idea of what goes into that, it's unpasteurized, which means it's raw. So unpasteurized milk, better for your gut biology. There's a lot of things going on. We have to pay, our own little farm has to pay €2,000 a year to a lab to get that milk tested to make sure there aren't any listeria or any bad things in it. And I'm happy with that. I don't want to give people poisonous milk, but that's still quite a lot of money for a little farm. And there's also all of the inspections that go into it. We get an inspection from the Food Safety Authority of Ireland. We get 2 inspections from the Irish Organic Association, a processing inspection and then a farm inspection. And then there's a number of other things. For example, that glass bottle, that costs 60 cents to buy, a single glass bottle. And yet, if you are talking to the average conventional dairy farmer at the minute, how much are they getting for a litre of milk? Does anyone know how much the average, how much you've had your bottle of milk? I can't bet the answer. Does anyone know? There's a
26 cents.
45 is actually the right answer. At least I don't know if I can give you. No, I don't know if I know. But okay, 45 cents per litre. But does anyone know how much? How much do you think Glenisk, so the biggest organic dairy processor at the minute? So, but roughly, so not to make it too confusing, conventional farmer, your normal farmer, will get 45 cents per litre for milk, but that's based on the lowest amount of protein and fat. So the average price, when you increase that, they're probably getting about 52 cents, maybe 55 cents if they've got a lot of fat in their milk. So how much do you think Glenisk, the base organic dairy processor, how much are they paying for milk in a minute?
65.
They're paying 55 cents per litre for milk. So where is the premium? What is the point in being an organic dairy farmer out there if you aren't actually getting the support of the organic processes? That's the big question. Why would you switch from being a conventional farmer to being an organic farmer when it's harder and you can't spread things like nitrogen to make your grass grow? So there's a big question in there. And it's a shame because milk is a fantastic product. We have been drinking it for years. When we couldn't drink it because we were lactose intolerant for a long time, when we were doing things like building Stonehenge, we made it into cheese. It is a brilliant protein source, but unfortunately, because the way things have been programmed now, it's being made in a way and produced in a way that we know is bad for the environment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So we'll do the next slide, and I do have this in a second. So here are just some stats about our dairy industry in Ireland. You probably know them already. So the dairy herd has increased. There is an average of over 90 cows in your average dairy herd now. And that's increased obviously since the abolition of quotas in 2015. I don't want to be too down on the dairy industry because it is probably the only industry where you could earn €100,000 and not have to move to a big city to do that. And that is phenomenal, and we need to bear that in mind. If you are someone growing up in rural Ireland and you are trying to build a house, you are trying to get a mortgage, you want to raise a family, you want to do all the standard things in life that just should be there for you if you want to do them. Dairy farming is probably the only thing in rural Ireland that can keep you on the land, and that there is a blueprint there for it as well. So that's another unfortunate side of it. There isn't exactly the same blueprint there to earn lots of money as a vegetable grower. There isn't the same blueprint there to be an organic dairy farmer, but there is a blueprint there that's been provided by the government, provided by Teagasc, where you could earn a substantial amount of money and you can stay on your land and you can walk outside your front door and it's there for you. And there's huge supports there for you to do that. And you've been told that you can do that. So I think that needs to be kept in mind as well. So then we have increased a huge amount the volume of milk that we produce there. Nearly 9 billion litres a year. Our biggest export is butter. We are mad about butter. We know this. We are so proud of seeing Kerrygold on Irish shelves. Just so proud of it. And the thing that gets me all the time is that we're really proud of being grass-fed. And this was touched upon by Klaus as well, that we're merely marketed as being organic, but we aren't organic. To be organic certified, for your milk to be organic certified in Ireland, it has to be 95% grass-fed. That's not 100% grass-fed. That's not grass-fed. And I have a real bee in my bonnet about that, because 95% grass-fed still means that there's 5% that can be GM soy coming into an animal's diet. So that's a big question as well. And then fertilizer. Place, I hate fertilizer too. I look at it. I started looking at fertilizer and I nearly think that it's not just criminally wrong, but morally wrong. I kind of get this feeling inside that I start to tighten up when I look at it, because not only are we using huge amounts of gas to produce it, which seems wrong when there are people that are energy starved and cold and can't afford to turn on the heating, and we're shipping it from places like Russia and Belarus, which just feels wrong. And also it's a finite resource. So why are we relying on this thing that isn't going to be there really in 40 years and that we're creating more conflict over? And once again, people talk about things like, oh, well, there's a new scheme that we're going to grow multi-species swords, and we're going to grow clover. But all of the research that's been done in terms of growing multi-species swords and in growing clover on Irish farms, to grow it, you have to plough up the land, spray it with Roundup, and use artificial fertilizer, because those trials haven't been done thoroughly enough in Ireland in an Irish soil context to do it without it. So we just seem to be repeating the cycle. Soy as well, I have a real issue with soy. So on the farm, on the dairy side of things, we do feed grain to the animals over 6 weeks in the winter time, just to keep milk production levels high. All of that grain comes from 50 miles away. So we're based in Limerick, and we get the grain from a farm in Tipperary. Most of the organic feed that's used in this country is imported, because we don't have enough organic tillage farmers to grow enough of the feed that we actually need. And that's really sad. And once again, that's down to lack of support and lack of education as well. So there are 6 million tonnes of feed used in this country to feed animals. Over 4 million tonnes of that is imported meal and grain. A huge proportion of that would be soy. And that soy is, of course, linked to deforestation of the rainforest. So when you see a litre of milk, it's important to question yourself what has gone into being produced in that litre of milk. And then we've got to increase the number of dairy cows as well. I didn't use a dairy cow, I used a hamster, because I just feel like we're going around in a circle constantly. So we've increased the number of dairy cows in the country. And a lot of people would say, cows are the issue. Agriculture is the biggest source of emissions in the country. We know that from the EPA. But what I would say is that I had a separate company come out who calculate carbon on farms, and they calculated the carbon footprint on the dairy side of the farm. And our farm has a carbon footprint that's over 30% lower than an average conventional dairy farm. And that's because we have a lot more space for the cows. We're not intensively grazing it. We haven't reseeded the land. We're still using older types of grass, so it's not perennial ryegrass. We have a huge amount of land set aside for nature as well. And because we are so lowly stocked, it means we have a much more grass-based system. So I'm not saying that we are doing it the right way. I don't want to sit up here and just be preaching down to people, but I do think that both farmers and consumers need to take responsibility for where they get their food and what's being put in their food, and a lot of more thought process needs to go into that. And I think I just have one slide left, because I was depressing myself when I was doing this. I know I did too. So yeah, milk and mixed messages. I don't know if anyone's familiar with a lot of dairy farmers on Twitter at the minute. It's become a very toxic space and a very toxic environment, and it's like a boil that's about to burst or something. And last year, the conventional milk prices were increased hugely, and a large part of that was because a plant in America that makes baby formula, the baby formula came back and it wasn't safe to use for babies. So a couple of plants in Ireland got the call up to start supplying baby formula to America, and Irish milk prices just went up boom. And people were talking about getting 90 cents a litre. So bear in mind, the average price is usually about 40 cents a litre. So farmers were told they were great. You are amazing. You are saving babies. You're not just feeding babies. You're saving them. You're brilliant. And I remember I got slightly attacked on Twitter because I said something slightly negative about the dairy industry. And someone said, do you realise how lucky and how good it is that Irish farmers are providing safe baby formula to babies? It is kind of like there's so many complicated things that are around this, because Ireland isn't responsible for supplying the world's baby formula. We supply the world with over 10% of the world's baby formula. I don't know if people know that. It's a lot of baby formula, and it's basically supplying cheap milk to the world. We're never going to get a huge amount of money for it. It's basically supplying cheap milk. So we're not really responsible for the breastfeeding policies of places like America and China. China obviously wants to get their workers, women, and then women in particular, back to work as soon as possible. So they want women to start using baby formula. If people know this, that Chinese baby formula versus Western baby formula over there is seen as an elite product. So it's a more high-end product. So they're told to buy that for their babies because it's an elite product and better for their baby. But we aren't responsible for feeding the world's babies. We might be very good at it, and that's great. And I don't want to deny anyone baby formula if they want baby formula. But at the same time, do you know where, if you wanted organic baby formula in Ireland, do you know where that organic baby formula would come from? Give a guess. Do you think it's Irish? Does like hands up who thinks we have organic baby formula in Ireland? No one. Good guesses. I don't have enough milk to give you all. But no, if you want organic baby formula in Ireland, it comes from France. We don't have enough organic dairy farmers in Ireland. We don't have enough organic milk pool in Ireland to create organic baby formula. So we are delighted with ourselves that we supply over 10% of the world's baby formula, and yet we can't have enough or a big enough organic milk pool to make our own organic baby formula. So where is the control in that? And we talked a bit about sovereignty, and there's this discussion in the Irish dairy industry that people seem to feel like they have control over what's happening on their dairy farm, and they're getting quite irate that all these nitrate regulations are coming in around water, that prices for inputs have gone up in regards to fertilizer prices have basically tripled, that meal prices, because of the war in the Ukraine, but that they basically tripled as well. The thing is, if you take away 1.4 million tons of fertilizer, 4 million tons of imported meal, how are you feeding those cows? How are you growing that grass? What level of control do you actually have? And considering that the state of the Amazon rainforest at the minute, the state of things in Brazil, the state of, say, importing fertilizer from war-torn countries, or the fact that it's a finite resource, how can you actually say that this is sustainable? In 40 years' time, what's the dairy industry going to look like? So they're big questions and I don't necessarily have the answer, and I get quite depressed about this sometimes, as I'm sure a lot of people in this room probably do. So I usually finish with this. So being Irish, I have a lot of alcoholics on my family tree, and I've come across various support groups for that, and one thing that crops up again and again is the Serenity Prayer. So instead of giving you links to things, I think that talking about sovereignty and food sovereignty, it has to start with the individual, not just the farmer, but also the consumer. So I think we also have to just accept things that we can't control and accept things that we cannot control. And if we all actually accept the things that we can't control, we probably have a lot more control than we think we do. So if you're going in and buying vegetables, are you making an effort to buy organic vegetables from Klaus or from Thomas that have an ethos behind it, not just organic vegetables that have come from Spain and potentially been picked by slave labor? Are you buying butter, or are you buying milk that's come from a farm that actually cares about the environment? Are you making an effort to source things as locally as possible? And it's not easy, and I'm not saying it's easy, and Lisa does a fantastic project every year where you talk about it's for September, isn't it? Where you eat within essentially nearly like a 50-mile radius of your home. And that's difficult, but if you can do that with one product, and that's what I would tell you, if everyone went home and just changed one product that they buy and made that local, that's you making a difference and accepting what you can't control.